Brandon matched for his preliminary year in internal medicine at Kaiser Permanente Santa Clara Medical Center and for his residency in radiation oncology at the Harvard Combined Programs.
So I was traveling just before graduation, and in one of the cities, I happened to capture one of those special moments between two people. It was a brisk night, and there were two gentlemen walking toward each other on an empty street. And as they crossed paths, one of them stopped to offer the other a light. And as I watched this improbable scene, this darkness around them, a candle suspended between them, sharing this space, I remember that I thought, lung cancer. Someone's got to stop these guys. I should stop these guys. I should intervene. Medical training skews your perspective. As a doctor, perspective is quite important, but it's often complicated. One nugget from my training that always intrigued me was this particular phrase. It comes from psychiatry. And usually you would see it in doctors' notes when they were evaluating a patient's mental or emotional status. And it would typically arise as some variation of this phrase: the patient is responding appropriately or inappropriately. Responding to anything, other people, their disease, the prognosis that we just gave them. This fascinated me. We learned many technical things in medical school: anatomy, genetics, physiology, pathophysiology. But assessing what comprises an appropriate response for another person was never something that we learned in training. There are no technical guidelines for making that kind of determination. And that can be challenging, particularly when working in a hospital environment. You see, the hospital is this place that no one really wants to be. I think it's telling that the very first thing that babies do when they enter this world is to start crying. What kind of sad commentary is that on the only thing they know in this world, that they immediately start crying? I mean, they see us, the clinician's face, boom, inconsolable. You've got to have thick skin in medicine. But maybe the babies have it right. The hospital is a challenging place. People are suffering. People die. It can be a stressful place. And we, as a profession, are not always kind to the uninitiated. Doctors are tired. They yell. They cry. Everyone up here has pride somewhere in there. How can someone possibly keep perspective amidst all of this? We see things on a daily basis that most people will only see once or twice in their entire lives. How do you remain tethered to others across that kind of chasm in experience? What we're doing is not just acquiring a credential. We're also acquiring a skill, a language. A language that, once mastered, grants us access to certain levels of power in our society that have been granted to us. What I'm talking about is not unique to medicine. There are many other languages that people fight to master, but this is the one that we chose. What's ironic is that for a profession devoted to serving others, we spend so much of it isolated in communities where everyone speaks the same language. Secluded, it can be easy to forget why we do this at all. And to rediscover that, I believe that we must leave these places. We must look outside. Go outside and see the kids swinging in the tall grass. We do it for them. We do it so that people might fall in love, compose beautiful arias, play the cello masterfully, so that they can protest in the streets. We do it also so that people may lose their jobs, struggle with their in-laws, and pray to God about something else other than their health. We do it so people can live, so they can struggle. Out here, not in there. And we do it for you. You who supported us, who protected us, who helped us to answer the question, why? In the 1700s, the philosopher David Hume gave the advice, be a philosopher, but amidst all your philosophy, be still a man. I believe his wisdom rings true for us as well. Be doctors, but amidst all your medicine, be still men and women. The language of medicine can teach us to sustain life, but it cannot give life meaning. That happens elsewhere. My pop taught me something about the meaning of life. He's here in the audience now, on the phone. Growing up, my dad was prone to speak at length about little lessons that he wanted me to hold on to. And I was a distracted kid. But there was one moment that I will never forget for the rest of my life. I remember it was one afternoon, he sat me down, he got down on one knee, and he looked at me, and he said, son, I know that I tell you many things, and I know that you don't always listen. But if you remember nothing else that I tell you, remember this. That's it, that's all that I remember, actually. Yeah, young Graham wasn't too sharp yet. I can guarantee you tonight at dinner I'm going to hear that this was not the right response. So, what is an appropriate response? To disease, to pain. What about to others' injustice? Or the way that we treat our students, the way we treat our trainees, the way we govern our institutions? These problems never end. It can be hard to find joy and happiness among such struggle, whether patients or our own. And it's okay to feel the sadness. Sometimes crying is the appropriate response to something terrible. Yes, sometimes it's compartmentalizing, collecting yourself and doing the job at hand. Sometimes it's resolving to be better and being better. Sometimes anger is the appropriate and just response. In medicine, we know as well as anyone that not everyone gets to choose. There are many people who are powerless, who have a voice that others do not hear. Our languages grant us the ability to articulate the voiceless thread of suffering, and the power to weave that thread into healing. We stand here today, poised in a moment in history. There are serious problems facing healthcare. Our profession is changing. Our country is ailing. We often look back at these moments in history, and we read about them as triumphs or failures. Right versus wrong, good and evil, victims and exploiters. We lose something when we capture these dynamic struggles and change them into these linear progressions. At the time, decisions were always more nuanced. But make no mistake, people later will look back on this time and they will tell our story linearly. They will scrub away the complexity and they will dichotomize the struggle. And while this depiction will be wrong, the monumental nature of this moment will not be. Because this is how history is made. And we are the ones who must make it. for whatever particular problem it is that you're equipped to solve. So, what is the appropriate response now? What do we owe one another? There are no technical guidelines for this choice, nor must we follow what has been done before us. We are no longer students. The decision is ours. So, I say, let them watch how we respond now. Let's get to work.